Good evening and welcome to School Talk Live. I'm Jackie Lawbacker and I'm here with Superintendent Mark Edwards, who will be taking your questions live on the air. Good evening, Dr. Edwards.
Good evening, Jackie. How are you doing?
I'm doing okay. Can't believe it's our last show.
Well, the year has flown by, but it's been a great year.
It really has, and we have a pretty good show for everybody. We have joining us tonight will be Ivan Alzoro. He is the producer and director of SportsWire, a television show on Henrico 36 that highlights and spotlights our outstanding athletes. We also have with us some of those outstanding athletes from 7 different Henrico high schools and several representatives from Newbridge School, who is the county's alternative elementary school. Also the barbershop quartet from Godwin High School called Trade Secrets. They will be performing 2 musical numbers. Before we get started, we want to remind our viewers that we want you to call in at 226-8716, and your questions will be answered live on the air. We welcome your general questions about Henrico schools, but if you have questions concerning a specific school, we encourage you to call that school's principal. Okay, now on with the show. Our first guest is Ivan Alzoro. He is the witty and the dashing man who is the producer and director of Henrico 36 SportsWire show. He's here to talk about the ins and outs of covering athletics in Henrico County. And Dr. Edwards, I hear SportsWire is a great show and very popular with our viewers.
You know, Jackie, it really is. In fact, we have had, since the inception of SportsWire, we've had a growing market share, a lot of interest from the community, students, teachers, parents in the community. And in fact, a year ago, a gentleman called me who was going through Henrico County on a business trip and had tuned in to Channel 36 and saw a SportsWire program and wanted information so he could take it back so that in his school system in Pennsylvania they could look at something like this. But Yvonne, we're glad to have you tonight.
A privilege and an honor to be on here.
Yvonne,
Coach.
Well, thank you. What an honor for that day. But Yvonne, would you tell us? I know that the regular viewers of 36 would know this, but could you tell us a little bit about the show and when it airs? So for those that might not be regular viewers of 36 or SportsWire would be tuned into that.
Okay. SportsWire basically used to be a bi-weekly show, but we've thrown in the 4th year, and now we're a weekly show since November of last year. And since then, we basically do a highlight and interview show. Currently, we're exploring on doing an interview program where we bring in the kids one-on-one with me or with a guest host. If nothing else, just to get to know who are these, the people behind, the headlines.
It's really hard sometimes to interview people with sports going on because you got a lot of action. You've got to get the action. You got to talk about the action. Then you want to talk to the people who have done all the action.
Mm-hmm.
What kind of interview skills and techniques do you use?
Okay, fair enough.
Do we have time?
Basically, a lot of it's what you watch on TV. You see what SportsCenter does, you see what ABC does, and some of the other networks, and you get your cues from them like anybody else would. But as far as asking some of the other questions, they really come from me. Like, for example, I wasn't much of an athlete in high school, so when I see your Johnny Junes type guy, and he does his stuff, the first thing I ask is, how did you do it? Because if I was to relive my high school days all over again, really, I want to do it like you. So at that point, the really questions come from within, as if I was a high schooler, what would I want to know based on what I can't do?
Well, one thing, Yvonne, the program's a lot of fun. Obviously, it's an informational program because we are sharing information about all of our sporting activities, but it is a lot of fun, and I think that's one reason that I know that when you attend a activity, there's a lot of response, a lot of interest. But Yvonne, one of the tough questions, I know you have to deal with this all the time, we have hundreds of teams in Henrico County. In fact, I think if we ever did an actual counting of all of the different teams, all the sports, all the seasons, it is incredible. But Yvonne, this is a tough question. How do you narrow it down and select the schools, the events, and the teams, and the games that you feature?
Well, I got this magic ball on my desk, and I shake it, and it says, not today. No. Basically what I do is, the philosophy going into it is, because there's so many teams, usually like for example, in the fall, in the winter, I do a preview where I get all the wrestling teams in, or I'll get all the football teams, and football's going to be covered. But I try to do a preview and try to get everybody on at least once. Then in September, whoever I didn't get on, in September, I go and hit those teams early on, because if you you want to call it an injustice, is if the team, for example, let's pick the Godwin girls volleyball team that always does great in volleyball. You don't want to hit them at district tournament time and then not show all their successes they had along the way on their way to, let's say, the state finals, state semifinals they had last year. So that's how I go about it. Try to hit everybody at least once, usually county, and then hopefully somewhere, if we're talking about the fall, somewhere in October, I can start hitting the really good matchups, which I think handles both requests. One, did you get my school on? Two, I want to see the good game, and that's how I go about it.
Right.
You have a segment on SportsWire that's called Legends.
Mhm.
What is that all about?
Legends is a 12-minute segment. I'm trying to mimic what they do on the Olympics, where they spend 3 minutes and talk about a great Olympian. Legends is about getting the kids acquainted with, for example, who these fields and stadiums are named after. Originally, the idea is to get all the legendary coaches who started up the programs at the respective schools and tell their story in anywhere between 7 to 12 minutes, and tell a bit about who they are, how they grew up, and get people to tell a little bit about why this guy was so beloved. And that's usually what I go after. Usually the coaches that I get or the ADs that I get, come highly recommended from the community. So I give them back, the story of one of their, great people.
Yvonne, over the years, we have been so fortunate to have so many incredible athletes in Henrico County, and I know we have several who have gone on and are participating at the college level, Division I. I know Aaron Alexander is one that you do well, and
Right.
Great quarterback from Verina, Mr. Robinson. So we've had some Michael Robinson, a lot of stellar athletes, a lot of different schools. But is there anything that, in terms of your coverage, as you've had a chance to work with girls sports, boys sports, the whole spectrum from every venue that's noteworthy in terms of the type of individuals that you see in our students, and as you've got to know them, I know it's we hear a lot about that, how the discipline is good. But any particular notes that you have in terms of the time that you've covered the sports scene in Henrico County?
I think one of the things that come up quickly on my mind is that some of these athletes that do really well, you read in the paper and you think, well, they've got a lucky beginning, or they were naturally gifted. A lot of these kids, when I interview them, like the Michael Robinsons, for example, they're kids just like the guy next door. They just took the extra time to make themselves better. So when you ask me, is there like a Spider-Man or a Superman in the group that's going to come out and do his thing? No, they're not really that way. They're the guys who just took a little more extra time, and that's what kind of makes it easy yet hard to answer that question.
Right.
Did I throw you a curveball on that one?
No, I
Okay.
think that's and I think that's important to note, because so often, lots of times when particularly younger kids are saying, "Oh gosh, that guy's a born athlete," or he was throwing the football 60 yards when he was in the 3rd grade. The truth is that there's a lot of hard work. In fact, one of the things that I enjoy about a lot of your segments, that it does emphasize the practice, and you see when there's nobody watching, and you're out there working in the off season, working during the season,